إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح لهذه الأمة فتركها على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى، وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. Brothers and sisters, when the Muslims besieged one of the forts that was occupied by the Christians in one of the battles as they conquered the world, they had trouble with the Christian fighters shooting arrows and spears at them because the fort is very high and it is closed from the outside. So their leader, Muslim ibn Abd al-Malik, said to his troops, as the siege took a longer time, they were not able to break into the fort. He said to his soldiers, "Who will volunteer to go through the pipeline of the sewer all the way till inside the fort? If he is alive, to open up the fort gate from the inside. And if he dies on his way, perhaps Allah Almighty will accept him as a shaheed." No one came up. He repeated again. One man stood up from the Muslim army. His face was covered. He said, "I will do it." He entered. He went through. He passed by. He got out from the sewer. He fought against the enemy. He opened up the gate from inside the fort itself and said, "Allahu Akbar," as a signal to the Muslim army to come and attack and invade the fort. And the Muslims invaded and they broke up the siege and went inside, and the Muslims had their victory of the Muslim army because of that one man. So the leader, Muslim bin Abd al-Malik, wanted that man to identify himself in order to reward him for that brave act of death that no one in the Muslim army wanted to volunteer to do it. So he called upon the army, the men that he had standing in front of him after the battle has finished. He said, "Where is the person who had covered his face, who volunteered to go through the sewer and risk his life for us to enter the fort? Let him come forward. I want to reward him." No one showed up. Again, "Where is that man who volunteered to go through it and open up the fort for us? Let him come forward. I want to reward him." There was no answer. At the end he said, "Fine. I have ordered my guards If that man wants to come to me in person, let him come to me anytime he wants. Few days passed by. A man approached the guard. He said, I want to meet Muslima bin Abdul Malik. The guard told him, are you the man whom he requested to identify himself? He said, I have news about him, so I want to share it with him. So as he stood in front of Muslima, he said, the man whom you want to meet has 3 requests before he reveals his identity. First of all, you do not send somebody to know where he lives and follow him. Second, do not ask him about who his name is. Third, he does not want to be rewarded. So Muslima said, we'll accept that. Tell me, who's that person? He said with all shyness, I am the one. Then he turned his back and left. And ever since that day, more than 1,000 years ago, no one knows who that person is. And since that incident, Muslim ibn Abdul Malik, every time he prayed, he said, Oh Allah Almighty, grant me the place where that man is in paradise. I want to be with him. Another example. Amr ibn al-As conquered Africa with a Muslim army. So as he conquered, he required additional troops because of the size of the continent and the battles that the Muslim took in order to spread Islam. So he requested from Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. He said to him, I need 4,000 fighters to be with me. So Umar ibn al-Khattab sent him 4. He requested 4,000. Umar ibn al-Khattab sent him 4. And said to him in a letter, I have sent you 4 men. Each man is equal to 1,000 fighters. These men are Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, Al-Muqdad ibn al-Aswad, Ubadah ibn al-Samit, wa Kharij ibn Hudhafa. 4 men equals to 4,000 men. As strange as it might be, as Muslims spread all over the world, the enemies of Islam knew the secret of our strength. Let me tell you something. In a letter, the king of Egypt, Al-Muqawqas, he sent to Hercules in Rome because they were under the Roman Empire, describing the Muslims as they conquered Africa. He said, although they are less than us and they seem to look weaker than us, yet they are strong and fierce. Although we are more than them in terms of troops and weapons, yet one of the Muslims equals to 100 men of us as Romans. You see, this is his letter. This is a Christian king communicating with Hercules. He said, now he opens up the secret. This is the enemy of Islam telling you. He said, there are people whom to them, death is more loved to them than life. The man fights among them and he wishes he does not go back to his home again, or to meet his family, or back to his country, or whoever he left behind. They see in front of them a great reward, that is paradise for those who get killed in their battlefield. And they say to themselves, if we die, we will enter paradise. Yet we as Christians, we are people who hate death. And we love life. So how could we be a match to their power that they have? Brothers and sisters, this is what Iman, when it fits in the Muslim soul and heart and faith. This is the Iman and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who taught his companions. This is the faith that shows the direction where a Muslim seeks is paradise, and nothing can stop him in this world. So they won in this world and the hereafter. أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان يوم الدين. Another case. Qutayb ibn Muslim, one of the Muslim leaders of battlefield, he encircled and put a siege around Kabul, Afghanistan, that's today. And he told his army men, go find Muhammad ibn Wasi'. Muhammad ibn Wasi' is one of Muslim scholar who's known for his faith and fear from Allah Almighty. Go seek where that person is among my army. I want to know his news. So they went in search for him and they found him. He was doing dua, praying to Allah. He had his hands open and his finger pointing to the heavens, to the sky. He said, Ya Sami'ud Dua, O Allah, who hears our prayer. O Allah, we are asking you for victory. O Allah, make our feet strong as we stand against the attack of the army, of the enemy. O Allah, make our weapons and our spears hit their target. O Allah Almighty, make our post and flag to be on our enemy's territory as we win the war. So they saw him and went back to Qutayb ibn Muslim, the leader of the army. And they told them exactly what they saw Muhammad ibn Wasi' was doing. Then Qutayba said, by Allah Almighty, the finger of Muhammad ibn Wasi' is better for me than 100,000 fighters in my army and 100,000 swords aimed at our enemy. The war started and the battle started and Muslims won that battle. Brothers and sisters, these few examples show you the secret of the strength of Muslims. That our enemy knows about it and we have read it throughout the history of Islam and Muslims, where the power comes in once we become sincere with our faith and Iman and Quran. Muslim armies never relied on numbers, quantity. No. The strength was in what kind of Muslim fighters they were part of this army, what kind of deep faith they had inside them, what kind of belief they had inside them, what led them to fight the war, what was the driving force behind it. Whether they were men, women, young or old, they were all fighters from the army of Allah Almighty. When that got instilled in the Muslim individuals, no army, no force on the world can stop them from moving forward. That's why every Muslim fighter became almost like a miracle. When the enemies of Islam saw them, they cannot believe that one person has the power of 1,000 persons. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, may I remind you of a prime example we are living nowadays. Gaza is not something that passes by. Gaza is a replica and a replication of the history of Islam finding its way to wake up the nation of 2 billion Muslims. Compare them to one of the well-known armies of their strength, the top 10 armies. more than 400 days, and yet nothing can stop them. Why? Because Iman was in the hearts and the souls of men and women. Go back through history of Gaza. Go back, check YouTube, look at the Quran camps that they had in the masjid before they destroyed all the masjids. Men, women, children of all ages, from age 7 and 6 till the age of 8 years old, reading Quran and memorizing Quran and reading about the history and the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Throughout these 15 or 20 years that took place to build that solid Muslim personality to fight against the enemy of Islam. It's no secret, it's in the history. Our enemies know about it. That's why they made sure to remove in the curriculums of the schools the battles of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how Muslims won the war, because they know that these issues are an inspiration to the youthful Muslims and throughout the generation of Muslims to stand up for their rights and fight for the cause of Islam. Let me remind you. You remember the first example I gave you about the man who went through the sewer? No one knows him till this day. Did you know that we have similar heroes? Gaza is full of tunnels, right? Who dug these tunnels? Have any one of you seen one of them, one person, stand up in media and say, I have dug the tunnel, my name is so and so, I am a hero? How many have died inside these 150 meters deep tunnels, digging through? That took them 15 to 20 years to dig for the Muslims too. How many of them have died? How many of them they lost their lives? How many of them they had cave-ins? How many of them have finished? Did you see one person stand up and say, or his family, or maybe his family does not know about him, to take pride in what he's done, to show the world, I am the hero, I have done that? How many thousands of men, women dug through these holes for the Muslims to fight against their enemy? Have you heard any of their names? History is repeating itself. What we used to read in the history, we thought that they were heroes. They are around us. There is no secret to it. The Quran is in front of you. The Sunnah is in front of you. All what it takes is for me and you to have the reaction with the Book of Allah. And you are seeing it. 2 billion Muslims, let alone some of us who turned our backs against them, many of the Muslim world, but yet they were there to fight for the sake of Allah, for the cause of Allah, not to be known, not to be identified, not for them, because they know the more they kept their secret between them and Allah, the higher their place is in paradise. I ask Allah Almighty to grant us the ability to see the reality of the world around us. And I ask Allah Almighty to give the Muslims back their reality of their dignity and strength in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I ask Allah Almighty to guide us and our families to the reality and the duty of us as a Muslim of 2 billion nation to awaken our senses. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات المسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب الدعوات. اللهم اجمعنا على الخير وأحينا على الخير وأمتنا على طاعتك يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذ منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل، ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل. اللهم ارحم موتانا وشاف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا. اللهم نسألك النصر والتمكين لإخواننا في غزة وفي كل مكان يا رب العالمين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقم الصلاة.